You are our representative in Syria. You've been there for 2.5 years, and you just spent some time in Eastern Ghouta. What did you see when you walked through the streets of Eastern Ghouta?
It's at the verge of a major disaster, because you walk in that town and you feel, you see destruction, you see displacements, you death, you see their bodies still in destroyed buildings. The smell is very strong in those areas. There are people who are living in overcrowded basements, people coming out of those basements when we were there. Hard to describe them. It is, there's pale skins, you could see rashes on their skins, you could see that they're stunted. The kids who would tell me they're age 12, 13, 14 look like 6, 7, 8 years of age. They literally look very small. And then the trauma that they go through is shelling, constant shelling, living in fear, not knowing what's going to happen. They share meal amongst themselves. There's not enough food to go around, there are not enough medicines. So it's a town which is at the verge of disaster.
They desperately need food, they desperately need medical assistance, medical supplies, but what they most desperately need is an end to the shelling, the bombing, and they need safety.
They are scared. They told me that they fear these bombings, which happens to them constantly. They fear hunger. They've seen the kids suffering, but they fear the most what is yet to come.
So there are many people who told you that they would actually like to leave, but they needed 3 things in order to feel that they could. What were those 3 things?
Yeah, they told me that we're running for our life from here, and the last thing we want to find is death on the other side. So they want to leave the place safely, one, arrive in areas where they're going to be placed, stay safe, and lastly, they would like to return home safely. And when the situation improves, that they want. But right now, they are facing a situation which is an aggressive military action which is taking place right now. There are armed groups inside who are resisting and fighting. There are groups that they're fighting amongst themselves, and there's pressure from outside, from the military. So the civilians who are caught in this situation, they have nowhere to go. There is a very crowded space. 1/3 of East Ghouta is now under government's control. So the population is now in a very small location, highly congested urban areas.
400,000 people.
400,000, 393,000. And this is cramped in small, these are urban areas where they are cramped. So they are not sure what's waiting for them beyond this military operation.
It must be terrifying for people.
I've never seen so scared faces in my life that I've seen there. We have to find words to describe what that means, what that fear is. You can see it in their eyes, you can see in their expressions, they see they need to talk, but they're also desperate someone to come out and help them out.
You walked through the town, you saw terrible destruction. One of the buildings you stopped at, you asked a question to a man who was standing outside. What did you ask? I
was walking around with a doctor near SARC cleaning, and there was very strong smell. And the doctor suggested we do not go further on that. And I asked, I said, this smell is very strong. He said, there's a bodies still in that rubble. And I stood there for a while and looked at that building. It was a 5-story building, totally collapsed. And I asked how many people are buried in there, and then there was a gentleman who said there are 3 bodies in there. And then I heard someone behind me said, no, they're not 3, they're 4. And I looked back, and there was a gentleman who explained his wife, his daughter, his son-in-law, and his brother were buried in there. And then he explained how much he went through, the pain and everything else, that he put this building up. And it collapsed right in front of him. He was in there, he survived, but now he's waiting for the bodies to be recovered. And he still said, Alhamdulillah, which is a term which is keeping their commitment, keeping themselves strong. And I admired him, what he said. Each family has a story, each mother has a story to tell. It's painful.
And they're mostly women and children there.
It's amazing to see. It was mostly women and children in that neighborhood that I walked around. I was told by the town council that majority of the families are now managed by women, grandmothers, mothers, sisters, regardless of age or whatever, and they are the ones who are now managing this difficult situation. I can't even imagine how they do it, but they're managing their families now.
You were in this humanitarian convoy that managed to deliver some of the goods that were in the back of the trucks, but you were very frustrated because you couldn't offload all of the food and the supplies.
It was frustrating, not that we could not deliver it. We were frustrating that we brought food after so much of work and planning and what we call deconfliction, telling all parties to the crisis to stop bombing. And when we get there with the trucks in, and people know that there's some food in there, and then in the end we are not able to offload those trucks because shelling was going on, bombs fell 600 meters from where we were. And that's when we got frustrated that we went in with all these efforts. There were people who were hungry. We saw them there, and we were not able to deliver aid. But we are determined. We will go back, and we'll go back again. There's planning going on right now. In the next couple of days, we are hoping that we'll go back and go back with more aid. But this is not the determination of humanitarians that is going to bring aid in. We want their bombing, shelling to stop. Whoever is part of this groups inside Ghouta, they need to give us that security assurances that we can come in. And those who are outside need to give us that guarantee that there'll be peace during that period when we go in and bring assistance in. But we're determined to go back.
Half the country has been displaced, either internally or externally.
It was 22 million before the crisis. We have 5.5 million refugees outside. We have 6.3 million IDPs inside. This is half the population of that country displaced. And from the remaining, a large majority are now below poverty, and they do not have the means to take care of themselves as well.
And this is one of the pervasive issues in the country, and that is people have just sunken in to extreme poverty. It's very difficult to, they've lost their jobs, they've lost their homes. How do they cope?
And I think this is the Syrian culture that is pulling them, the communities, the network is pulling them together. They're sharing whatever little that they have. They're looking after each other. It's part of their culture that they have. They've gone through in their history, gone through difficult times, and they feel this is yet another difficult moment in their time. That's what's getting them going.
Are you hopeful that soon we'll see a different Syria?
I cannot commit the crime of saying I'm not hopeful. I have no right to say I'm not hopeful. If Syrians are hopeful, I'm hopeful.
Sajjad, thank you very much.